plugged in? Oh yeah, we saw it. I saw audio coming through on it. Check, check, 1, 2. I'm 90% sure I saw audio coming through on it. And if it is, okay, yeah, it's plugged in. All right, it's plugged in, folks. All right, Riley, focus. Everybody focuses tonight. Quit flapping your little yappers. Let's do some stuff. Zip it. All right, so the first thing what we're doing today is we're going to make Meredith explode. We're working on our DejaVu project, and we want to make Meredith explode into bits because she just got shot by herself. So we're going to take this shot, which you see right here, and we're going to work to make her explode in this shot. All right, so to do that, we need to do a couple things. We need to separate Meredith from the background. Yes, Riley?
Did you take this same shot without Meredith there?
No, we did not. That's what I was telling you is the problem, is we didn't do a plate with the background lit. So there's some mistakes that were made on this, and we're going to have to work through them and make it work the best that we possibly can.
Okay, we're good at that.
Fortunately, she is almost entirely on this brick textured background, so it shouldn't be too terrible to fill that in. And we're going to try a couple things. So in 2019, we've got content aware fill now. So we're going to try to use content aware fill to see if we can fill the background in on one frame with Meredith for a background plate. And we'll see how it works. It doesn't have to be perfect because the shot is really fast. This is the shot.
Fire, fire.
Fire. It's like
Fire.
2 seconds long, not even.
Fire.
And it'll probably be even quicker in the edit. So we have a little extra on the front and probably a little extra on the back. The part we really care about is probably right here. Between here and maybe about there. So that's like 1 second, 10 frames roughly. Yeah, something like that. 1 second, 4 frames. So not very much time to cover. But what we do need to do is we do need to build a background plate that we can use. And we have one that we can use for the dark part right here after the light's passed. So the light is really only up for a super short amount of time too. So once she explodes, boom, we'll have her basically like lift her hands up to about here. We'll freeze frame her, cut her into a bunch of pieces, and make all the police pieces fly everywhere and have blood come out of them and all that good stuff. So that it's crazy looking, right? So a couple things that we need to do. We need a full color lit background plate that we're looking at right now without Meredith on it. So we need to cut Meredith out and we need to fill the background in. And then we need to make sure that we have the background plate from here too, which you guys don't have right now. So I'm going to pause this and get that to you. Now we have a plate shot, which looks like this behind Meredith. So what I did is I cut that in right after the light goes away so that we've got the clean plate to work off of. So there's a few frames here where the light comes up, and basically what we kind of want to do with this is like she gets hit, throws her arms up, she starts like maybe the light starts coming out of cracks or something like that coming out of her chest and maybe her neck and face, like something like maybe growing almost like cracked glass or something. Could look really cool, like light coming out of it, and then she just explodes into a million pieces and flies all over the screen after the light goes out. So we're probably going to need Meredith. We'll just have her explode right here. And then for the remaining, we'll have the remaining frames will be like her parts will fly off the screen in the remaining frames. Okay, so we've got the background plate. We need to build a clean blue plate out of this background. So let's do this. Let's take, let's rename some layers first. Let's call this Meredith Solo. So we'll take Meredith Solo, we'll make a layer for that. We'll rename this plate no light. And then we're gonna have to duplicate the Meredith Solo, and we're gonna have to create a blue light plate back there as well. We'll put that underneath Meredith Solo. So we kind of have all the layers that we need. So when this light starts coming up, and it's kind of full shelf, like right about here, that's where we're probably going to have our blue light plate. So let's go and grab the best frame to kind of clean up and use the content aware fill tool on to see if we can fill this in and make this a workable plate for 1, 2, 3, 4 frames. So it just needs to be good enough for 4 frames. All right, so here we've got the blue light plate. So what do we want to do here? What I want to do here is I want to take this frame and I want to freeze frame this. So what I'm going to do is right click on this, go up to time and say freeze frame. And that's going to create a freeze frame of that layer. So if we solo that layer, we should just see that one frozen frame of Meredith. Does that make sense to everyone? Okay, then the next thing, and this is going to be kind of an interesting way to use content aware fill. So this new version of After Effects has content aware fill, and it works for video. It works for multiple frames at once. We're gonna only use it for 1 frame. We're not gonna use it for multiple frames, mostly because I just don't know how well it's gonna work. We'll try it with maybe we should try it with all the frames and see what happens. The only trouble with trying it with all the frames is we have to go in and roto, or just like loosely mask what we want filled in, right? So maybe let's give it a try. Let's see what happens. So I'm gonna untime remap this. I'm gonna shut this off so we get video right here. And we really can only use the video where it's fully lit blue. So if it's not fully lit blue, we don't need it. So if we're gonna content aware fill this, what we need to do is we need to go in and we need to create a mask for where the computer is going to be content aware filling these frames, right? So let's get in there and create some masks. I'm gonna kind of do this like we would do a rotoscope, but it's gonna be pretty loose. So I'm gonna start with like the head, and then I'm gonna do the torso and the arms. So let's get started with some masking. So I'm gonna get in here and just create a loose mask around Meredith's head and hair. And that's really going to be it. And what I'm going to do with this mask is I'm going to set it to none, and then I'm going to mask path animate this thing. And one thing that we can try here is we can try tracking our mask. So let's just you right click on the mask and you can say track mask, and it will pull up the tracker, and you've got options in there for scale, rotation, a bunch of stuff, perspective. Let's go ahead and throw on position, scale, rotation, and skew, and we'll just step it forward and see how well it tracks her head. And I can tell already that I'm going to fix this so that we're using as tight of a mask as possible. But it will at least help. Keep this mask nice and tight. So this is kind of how content aware fill works. You still have to go in and mask around what you want to mask around to create a negative or a void where we need content filled in. It's going to be really interesting because she's taking up like a third of the pixel space. Okay, there we go. That's fine. It's fine. And we're done. So there we go. And then what you want to do is you want to set your mask path to subtract. So what content aware fill wants to do is it wants to find areas of, blank areas in the frame and fill them in with other spots in the frame. I'm also going to feather this out a little bit, just so the edges are a little bit softer. So there's one mask, and then like I said, I'm gonna go in and do the torso area. And again, try to keep these masks as tight as you can.
Should we overlap them like we would do in bokeh?
Yeah, a little overlap is good.
This mask is on the blue light layer, is that right?
Correct.
Okay.
Mine's not like subtract.
You gotta set it to subtract, y'all.
I did. Same.
What? Are you sure that you're not looking at the footage itself like this? Or like this?
Is it solo? Solo your footage.
Yep, solo your footage, y'all.
Okay.
Otherwise, you're gonna see the footage, the Meredith solo footage behind it or whatever. All right, so again, we've got another mask now. So I'm gonna say track mask, and I'm gonna just track forward and make sure that this mask is nice and tight and where it needs to be. And I won't lie, this is probably way too much work for this. If I were going to do this, I'd probably just go into Photoshop and then paint her out in Photoshop rather than do it this way. But I want to see what kind of result we get from using content aware fill inside of After Effects. So we're going to find out here in just a minute. That looks pretty good. Looks pretty good. Again, just trying to keep these masks nice and tight so that the content aware fill has plenty to look at for the background. What I'm hoping doesn't happen is that we get like doors filling in her body area here and like weird stuff going on that won't work for the plate. If that ends up happening, then what we'll do is I'll go into Photoshop and do it in Photoshop. That one looks pretty good. And that's the end of that. All right, so we got a couple masks now. Then you can take that second one and set it to subtract, and you can feather it out a little bit like we did with the other one. 30 pixel feather. 30 pixel feather is what I did. And now we're gonna get in there and do, I'm renaming my masks too, so I'm clicking on them and just so I can keep stuff straight. All right, so let's get in there and get these arms done. Again, just grabbing the pen tool, going back to that original frame and starting a mask, drawing this mask around where her hands are. There's gonna be quite a bit more movement here, so make sure you give yourself some nodes to work with. I'm gonna go ahead and click on this and say right arm, and then set this to none. In fact, I'm gonna just set the other ones to none too for now. And then we're gonna track that mask and see how it goes. So this one's gonna need a little bit more finagling because she's moving quite a bit here. And that looks pretty good. Go to the next one. Again, just making sure that these masks are pretty tight around what we need to get rid of. Oh man, I really hope this works. Come on, AI. Do some work for me for once. That worked pretty well. Worked pretty well. Pretty well. And we're done. Sweet, that one's all tracked out. Go ahead, I'm gonna add another one. Kind of around her arm. Pen tool again, let's go up here and start working on this guy. Start up here. Oops, that's a shape layer. That's not what I need. Start up here and just kind of draw around this hand. Just utilizing a little bit of overlap, make sure everything looks good. Okay, there we go. And I'm gonna name this real quick, left arm. And then I can set this back to none so it can kind of see stuff. And then we're gonna track this one out too. Okay, obviously that didn't work for crap. So we'll get in here and fix it all up. I did actually utilize the content aware fill stuff for some work on my brother's keeper trailer, and that worked out really well. I was removing markers from the football field, and that was great. You could set up a mask around a marker, track it forward, hit subtract, content aware fill, tell it to set to surface, and it filled it all in super slick. Worked great. Okay, that one looks pretty good. Let's go to the next one. Adjust here quite a bit. Okay, looks pretty good. Moving on to the next one. I thought we weren't going to do a roto project, Todd.
No, this isn't bad. This is pretty smooth. 4 shots.
Everything's roto.
That's not, yeah, pretty much.
Roto is life, roto is everything.
Everything in VFX is roto.
Is it actually, though?
To be honest, we live a roto life. Our eyes roto everything so that we can see in 3D.
Life is only frames. Only the frame keeper. I'm sorry.
The keeper of the frames.
Did you know if you went to watch a movie, you'd always see frames?
What?
A bee's brain with its eyes are so fast that instead of seeing motion, you would actually just see the frames of the movie.
Is that why bees always beat the shit out of me? Always get to draw on me when it comes to running.
Yep.
They know where I'm at before I even know where I'm gonna go.
That's
Yep.
funny. All right, so we're still rotoing the arm.
I feel sorry for you. I've had 3 bees
That
last
looks
time.
pretty
They
good.
stung me. One on my toe, one on my pancakes, and one on my head.
That's what's up.
Focus, Riley. Are you done rotoing?
No.
Okay, finish rotoing. All right, there we go. Okay, so boom. Once you get all of your masks on your subject, set them all to subtract. And then the next thing you need to make sure that you do is that you set your work area, right? So you got to set your work area to what you actually want content aware fill to fill. So then we need to go to Window and click on Content Aware Fill. And you can see right here it gives you the fill target. We are filling with surface, and we want the work area to be the range in which it fills. Let's also make sure that all of our stuff is properly feathered.
How feathered should they be?
I'm going at least 20 to 30 pixels on each of my masks. Alright, so then once you get that done and you've got the content where fill all set up, you should see an area of alpha, which we've got. Fill method is surface because it's basically filling it in with these surfaces we see in the background, and we want the range to be the work area, so those like 7 frames that we already set up roto on. And then you say generate fill layer, and we're gonna save our project.
What are we gonna call it?
Let's call it S12. I think the numbers were VB, and then let's call it Meredith explodes .aep, and then we'll save that bad boy. And now it's going to try to generate a fill layer for me. I do not know how long this is going to take.
Did you say S12 VB?
V. V as in Victor. Victor boy.
Victor boy. Oh, Victor boy.
So this might take a hot minute. I'm going to pause this. Unfortunately, this is what we got with content-aware fill. And I kind of figured that this was going to happen, but I wanted to at least show you guys how content-aware fill would work. This is obviously not the best use of content-aware fill. It's trying to fill in too much without enough reference frames, and it's unfortunately not smart enough yet to do a good job.
Next year, though.
So what we need to do is we need to take this frame into Photoshop, and we got to Photoshop it.
Are we gonna have to like fucking phone stamp like the back of the door? And fix
Correct.
it and stuff?
Yes, that is right.
Yay.
So let's see.
This is like nightmare fuel.
Trying to figure out what the best frame would be to use, the one that's going to be the easiest. It's probably going to be this one, and here's my reasoning behind this. So the reason I think this frame will work the best to fill is because we've got a lot of reference area. Like this should be really easy to fill in over here. The door, the only tricky part is probably this bar right here that we'd need to fill in.
You just strip that down, man. Strip the top, bring it down. Or bottom top, that's what I would do. Yeah, no, you're right, it's gonna suck a little bit.
Well, it shouldn't be too bad. Remember, this only needs to work for like 7 frames.
Yeah.
Like it's going to be over in the blink of an eye. So it just needs to be good enough to pass for 7 frames. And when we make her explode, like we can probably fill the screen up with some blood and light effects and maybe some smoke and fire and shit to try to
Everybody
make
does
it
the right thing.
make it not quite as noticeable that we have a crappy background plate. So the layer that I'm going to take, well, and then there's this, like, this box thing right here too that would kind of need to be painted in. The nice thing is like all this stuff back here is pretty smooth shapes, right? Or pretty smooth color tones. Like if you needed to, you could paint a lot of this stuff out, or you could use gradients to fill stuff in, which is tricks that I use all the time. So we're going to convert now from an After Effects lecture to a Photoshop lecture. So let's take this one frame and let's export it for Photoshop. So what we're going to do is we're going to set this on an alpha channel so that we can go in, we can start working. We don't have to do any of the deleting work because we've already done that work in AE. So let's take this frame and we're going to say save frame as Photoshop layers. And let's see how this goes. We'll put it in here. We'll call this, what was it? It was S12 VB underscore MK explodes.psd, and we're going to call this light plate .psd, and we'll save that out. And then we will open Photoshop up.
Wait, what? What we do again?
So I saved it as Photoshop layers. Let's see if it actually worked first before we start monkeying around with stuff.
Mine isn't like done yet. It's like right now it's stuck at analyzing 100% at like.
Oh, then just click the X button and get rid of it. All right, so the cool thing about this is we've got our crappy fill layer, which we can probably utilize a little bit. Like this stuff right here isn't the worst. It's not perfect, but it's not terrible either. And we've got the original footage, which is good, and then we've got the shot where Meredith is cut out. All right, is everybody in Photoshop? Adam, you can just export a still frame to Photoshop. So here's how this goes. Go to Composition, Save Frame As, Photoshop Layers.
Okay, how did you get the like checkerboard?
Okay, that's this little button right here. Toggle Transparency Grid.
And then put on your shit.
This guy right here.
Should we save it as a Photoshop layers?
Yep.
Okay.
Save it as Photoshop Layers, and then you can bring the image into Photoshop real easy like.
I'm just gonna say Meredith explodes.psd because you know what?
That's fine.
All the 12 BB bullshit.
That's totally fine.
Yeah, I figured you weren't gonna complain much. Pretty chill about that.
Yeah, I don't. Yeah, do what you need to do, bro. You do you.
You can create a reference frame
the rules about complaining. You
Nope.
better have a
We go.
solution of
Okay.
how
We
to
go.
stop it.
Riley. We go. Save frame as Photoshop layers,
Okay.
right? And then you should be able to open that bad boy up in
All
Photoshop.
there, guys. Just, that's Kimchi. That's nice. I didn't know that.
So save it wherever you need to save it so that you can have access to it, and then crack it open in Photoshop. We'll start moving forward.
Yeah. Oh yeah. That's dope. That's cool. Oh man.
So the kind of nice thing about the fact that we did content aware fill in this already, you know, I'm interested. While you guys are bringing that in, I'm gonna do a content aware fill in here and just see if Photoshop does it any better. It's probably not, but we'll try it and see what happens. And it might actually work better to do small parts of this. I know that in Photoshop 2020, they actually give you the ability to select specific areas that you want to use as the fill layers. So like when you do content aware fill in the new Photoshop, you can select like whole people, and then you can go in and you can tell it use all of this area, and this area, and it will look at only those areas to do its fill work, which is pretty cool.
Well, what are these things? I have a weird blue set of bars that's fucking with me. See? Oh, you heard of those?
Hey, I know-
Weird blue set of bars.
Yeah, like a cropping device almost.
Weird.
And whenever I try and do anything over it, it just stops it.
Okay.
All the time, let me do some shit.
Hang tight for 2 seconds and I'll check it out. Go around here and let's see. I'm hoping this maybe Photoshop will do just a slightly better job than After Effects will.
Polygon is way better.
All right, so let's see. What are we looking at now? 8. Hurry up, jeepers. Oh, that's no big deal. That's just guides.
How do I keep them out?
So you can go here and go view extras, and you can shut the extras off, and that will turn the guides off. Or you can leave the extras on and you can say view clear guides, and it'll clear the guides. Those are just your video safe guides. I don't know why I didn't get those, but you guys did. That's a little on the weird side.
Someone prompts Meredith for a second time. You know what?
Come on, do it.
Do the roar.
How did you bring those into Photoshop?
Wow, that did not a terrible job. Awesome. Okay, that's helpful.
Just right click open in Photoshop.
Right click what?
The picture that you exported.
Yep, so you did the Photoshop layers, right, Riley?
What?
Did you export Photoshop layers?
Not yet.
Okay, so composition, save frame as, Photoshop layers.
Okay.
All right, sick. I'm going to use that. That did a ton of work for me. So really the only area that we have to, like, look how much better of a job content aware fill did in Photoshop than in After Effects. This is the After Effects fill. This is the Photoshop fill. Wow, like it did a really good job filling in the box right here for most of her arm. It got confused on the door, but that's not going to be too terribly difficult to fix.
How did you content aware fill in the Photoshop one?
You make the selection,
Yep.
and then right-click in the selection and say Content Aware Fill. So fill, Content Aware. Yep, there you go.
Fill content aware. Okay.
Correct.
So
And we can, the thing is we can go and we can tweak this and make it work better still, right? So like, all right, so if we're gonna tweak this, so what I did is I put the alpha channel Meredith, the one where we cut her out, on top. Then I took the Meredith solo layer that I content aware filled, and I put that below her blue light plate, right? So if I shut this off, all we see is the plate, which is fine. Then what I'm going to do is I'm going to create yet another layer over the top of this, and I'm going to be like, I'm just going to type in fill. And this is where we'll go in and fix all the wonky shit.
Bill was like grayed out for me. I got 2 layers.
12. Hurry up. Oh, because you're not on a visible layer. No, you don't want to fill that one. So shut that layer off, select Meredith Solo,
Oh,
then content aware fill.
like that?
Yep. And then give it like 5 minutes to do its shit.
It could be worse.
Yeah, it's not a terrible place to start, which is good. Okay, so now how do we fix all this garbage? All right, there's a bunch of ways that we can do this. Let's try a couple of things here real quick. So ways that we can work on filling things in. So like one of the things that's really going to throw people off is this door isn't quite right? Like we can tell that this is all effed up. So here's what I'm going to do to fix that. I'm going to take this little section right here, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to copy and paste that. I'm going to pull it up above everything else, and then I'm going to hit the transform option, and I'm going to just transform this into like a door bar, right? So all I'm doing is just kind of cheating in a way. And you can rotate this and stretch this out so that it kind of fits where we need it to fit. And then if you come in here and you do a little bit of Gaussian blur on it, it will smooth it all out so that it's a little more usable. Then the next thing that we can do is we can start erasing away some of the stuff that doesn't work, like this top doesn't work, and I want a nice soft brush for this. So if I go too fast, just let me know, guys. Soft brushes are good. So I'm just kind of coming in here, and we're gonna do this like a couple elements at a time. We won't do the whole thing at once. Smooth out this door bar a little bit.
Are you using an eraser for that?
I am. I'm just using soft brush eraser, going right over it. If you wanted to make it non-destructive, you could use this little add layer mask deal right here, and that would make it non-destructive. All right, so we filled that in. Now we've got the problem of like all this mess on the door, right? So let's kind of do something similar with this door. Let's take, and I'm gonna grab the eyedropper, and I'm gonna select this color up here, this kind of dark blue, and then I'm gonna push X, and that switches these two colors, right? Switches the foreground and background color. So here I got that dark blue in the foreground. I hit X, and now I've got the black, and I can select this lighter color down here. And I like using the gradient tool for stuff like this, right? So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna kind of come in here and go around where this door should be and create a rough mask of where this door should be, right? And I'm actually gonna swap these colors again one more time. So I'm gonna do this button, I'm gonna take this dark color, and I'm gonna swap again, and I'm gonna take this lighter color down here, and I'm just gonna use the gradient tool. And then what I'm gonna do with the gradient tool is I'm gonna say gradient tool, I'm gonna come up here and I'm gonna use this one right here. So there's like the linear gradient, which is a gradient from one color to the next color, and then this gradient is like a reflected gradient. So it's got the darker color, the lighter color, and the darker color again. So check out what happens when we do this. And I should not be doing this on this layer, so give me just a hot minute. So I'm going to go in here, and I'm just going to have multiple layers that I'm filling in with stuff. So I'm going to take this, and I'm just going to draw it across the whole deal, and now we got this nice, smooth-looking gradient. In fact, that isn't even exactly what I wanted. I wanted it to be more like that. That's what I want it to be more like. So we got this nice, smooth gradient. Same thing. Let's just Gaussian blur that thing. Needs a little more Gaussian blur than that, so I want it to be nice and soft. And if I need to, what I can do is I can transform this and like grow it a little bit from side to side and up and down just to make it fit what it needs to fit. And that's looking not terrible for filling in our door back there.
Did you make a new layer to make that happen?
I did. I made a new layer. Is there anything on this layer? No. Okay, so I'm gonna just kind of name these door right. Oops, shoot. Hey. Door right. And then this I'm gonna call door post. Middle. Alright, so far so good. If you need to, you can do stuff like this too. Like you can come in and you can do adjustments on this stuff. So like you could say hue saturation, and then this little guy right here makes it so that the adjustment layers only affect the layer below. So it's kind of like working with adjustment layers in After Effects, right? So grab that guy, put him on there, and then you can kind of adjust the saturations, the lightness, to make sure that it kind of matches pretty well with your background, which it kind of already does.
Did you smooth out the like? Have you smoothed out the around the door?
I just blurred it. I used the Gaussian blur filter. So have my door selected, and then go up to filter, blur, Gaussian blur, or whatever you want to call it. I don't know what the right way to pronounce that word is.
Gaussian sounds just fine.
Gaussian, whatever. Gaussian.
Gaussian,
Yeah, it's gauze, because gauze is soft.
yeah. What radius did you put up?
I just eyeballed it. I didn't even pay attention to what radius. I just did it until it looked good.
What were you? So my selection looks like shit. What did you use to select it? 'Cause I did the lasso. I know it's not.
No, that's what I used. I used polygonal lasso to do it. Yep.
You did a really good fucking job with your lasso.
Thanks, man.
My lasso looked like dog shit.
What
Like,
did you
actually.
do to get the door color for that?
All I did was use the eyedropper tool. So right? So if I'm I'm gonna do this process one more time. All right. So here, let's do this door on the left now, right? So I've got my right door. I'm gonna go create a new layer. I'm gonna create just a selection around this right-hand side of the door.
Are you using shift to keep it straight?
No,
How are you keeping it straight then?
I'm just using the polygonal lasso. So instead of lasso, polygonal lasso.
Man, it's the little shit, you know?
It's the little things, right? Here's a quick tip. If you want to blur your selection, you can push Q, and what it will do is quick mask this, and you can apply blurs and different effects to this stuff, right? So you can come in here and say Gaussian blur, and it will blur the edges of your door. So if you want that to be a blurry selection, that's how you do that. And then you push.
Use the circular gradient pad.
I used.
So I know it was like either like the far right or the second to right?
It was this guy right here.
Okay, so the one where it's like two shit on the top and a white bar in the middle.
Yes, reflected gradient.
That was
All right.
you said?
Yep, that was Q to do that, and then I just used the filter to do the rest. And then here's how we get the colors. So you push I for the eyedropper, select a color at the top of the door, right? Push X to swap the colors, right? And then I for the bottom. And then you can take your gradient tool and fill that door in. And I want to fill it in the same way I filled in the other one, with the lighter color in the center and the darker color on the top. And that fills the door in, makes the door look like it's not garbage.
What do you do if your still does?
So, say again?
What do you do if your still looks like garbage?
If your still looks like
Still
garbage?
looking like, it just looks all like weird.
Wait, I think I have Zach's computer up already. Hey, listen to me. Dang it. Yeah, okay, that's right. No, you're on the right track. So do that, and then deselect it. Deselect it. You got to deselect it. Got to deselect it. Zach, you got to deselect it.
I didn't select. It's not selected.
Yeah, it is selected. See the selections right here?
You're on me.
Oh, I'm on you. Okay, never mind. You got to deselect it.
I'm trying to do the Gaussian blur thing. Should I deselect it to do that too?
Yes.
Okay.
You want the blur to affect the edges, right?
Yeah,
All right, so
okay.
Zach, were you on the other computer then? Doggone it. 12. Okay, I'm looking at you right now. Okay. All right, yep, so go filter and then blur that thing. And you gotta have your layer selected. There you go. Good job.
I was still thinking because you were saying don't select it.
No, that's right. This is exactly what you want to do. Yep, and back the blur off a little bit.
Like that?
Yep, till it starts to look good.
I hit Q for this shit.
There you go. And then if you need to, like, I would even blur it further than that, Zach. Yep, keep going, keep going, keep going. There you go. It needs to just look like, it needs to look like the background, right?
So just do that with the other one too.
Yep. So I mean, the whole this is the thing. Like, this is a super subjective type of workflow that we're doing right now. I mean, I've done this kind of work a ton. So like, I have all these tricks and things that I do to like make this stuff work. And like I said, fortunately, this shot has got just a lot of just normal texture stuff in it that makes this relatively easy to work on. And like, a lot of this stuff isn't going to be too terribly difficult to fix. The other thing that you want to think of is just like build layers up with pieces until you get something that looks cohesive, and then you can either put them in a group or you can just collapse them all on top of each other so that they're a flattened layer, and you can continue to work that layer. So now I got two doors that look relatively decent. I got the door bar in the middle that's built out. I'm going to label this one over here. I keep trying to do After Effects commands. Door left. All right, so I got my left door, which is a vast improvement. I got my right door, which is an immense improvement over what we had before. I've got my door bar in the middle that I've kind of fixed.
Yeah, this is cool.
And then, so the other thing, this box right here, this should be really easy to fix. So for this, we can use the clone stamp tool, right?
Yeah.
So we know this is a box. And so all we really need to do here is we kind of need to get like this color of the box and move it over here and fill the rest of this in so that it looks right. So all I'm going to really do here is I'm on a blank layer. I've got my clone stamp selected, and I want it to be aligned, and I want it to sample all layers. Actually, I should just say current and below. So all layers current and below. So it's basically going to take the image that I'm working on right now, and it's going to do its fill work from that. And so here's how we're going to fill the box in. So I'm going to come over here and kind of click, and this is so I'm holding Alt to do this, by the way. You can tell it what you want it to reference, right? So if you hold Alt, it turns into this little like crosshair deal. And I'm going to select the upper right-hand corner of this box. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to go over here to the left-hand side, and I'm just going to kind of paint down until I get a nice crisp edge over there. And then I'm going to do kind of a similar thing where I'm going to move this over a little bit, select that point, and then I'm just going to kind of draw in the middle. And it looks like it's kind of broken in the center, so I'm just going to take and fill the center in like so. It's good enough for government work. 7 frames. Remember, this is all we need this for, is frickin' 7 frames. It doesn't have to be absolutely perfect. Since we're doing clone stamp work over here, we can take this fill layer. I'm just going to call this the clone stamp layer. And I'm going to just continue to kind of clone in certain areas. Like there's this little hole right here that I can kind of see. So I'm going to grab some of this spot right here and draw that in, so that's filled in. this stuff over here is looking a little on the harsh side. So if you wanted to, you could grab your clone stamp tool, maybe make the brush a little bit bigger. Grab your clone stamp tool and start kind of cloning in some of this stuff over here. Wherever things aren't kind of working, you can just adjust a little bit. Clone stamp it in. This stuff over here, clone stamp that in. Make it a straight line. Same with over here. We'll do kind of the same thing. Just kind of line it up. Draw it down. And it's starting to look pretty decent. This down here is looking a little funky. So I'm going to just kind of blend these two together a little. Alright, so the next thing we should probably fix is this like lower part where the door reflection is. I'm going to go look at the original shot here real quick so I can see what it looks like. Oh, there was all that junk down there. Huh. Okay, cool. So the other thing that you can kind of see is that this corner is a little bit darker than the door right here. So if we wanted to, say, fix that, one of the things we could do is we could select the dark blue over here, create another layer, and we can just call this the paint layer, and come in with just a normal brush and kind of size it so that it's about the thickness of that blurred area. And then I'm just going to click, drag, and click again, and it will kind of darken in the edges. That door, I have my opacity set really low right now. You do like a thing like that, and then you can adjust it with the opacity. You could blur it out a little bit more with Gaussian blur so that it looks correct. If we needed to fix that door frame, like the door frame's a little bit lighter, you can do the same type of deal there where you like grab the color that you want the door frame to be and then just grab your brush and kind of draw in where the door frame would be, and again blur this guy out a little bit so it's a little more subtle. Click OK. Starting to look relatively passable. This spot right up here where her hand was, we could probably fix that too. And then this, okay, that was there. All right, that actually worked out pretty well. So then I'm going to go back to my clone stamp layer and kind of like grab little sections of this color right here and fill in this little hole. Or again, I mean, the other thing that we could do is we could, I'm going to make another layer. I'm just going to grab a couple colors over here. I'm going to grab this color and then this color. And I'm going to create just a simple selection up here. And then gradient fill that in too. And this I'm going to do as a linear gradient from light to dark. Like so. Take that. Gaussian blur it out. So it's nice and soft. Maybe adjust it a little bit with an adjustment layer. So I'm putting hue saturation on here and clicking this little guy that makes it only work on that one layer, and then you can kind of adjust the lightness so that it matches. So these are all the tricks that you can use to like rebuild a background. And I think for 7 frames, like where I'm at right now, this is totally passable for 7 frames. Like we can explode Meredith on this thing, have blood fly all over the place, have the wall get hit with blood, have smoke and, detritus or whatever for 7 whole frames, and then we're in good shape. So then I'm going to save this thing now that we've updated it. And I'm going to export this as like a PNG layer. The other thing that we could do is take all of the layers that we created to fill things in, and I'm going to group them together. So I'm going to say group from layers, and I'm just going to call this edit group. Click OK. And then what we can do is we can just to help this out a little bit. Oh, can we do that on a... Shit, I thought we could do that on... Okay, I guess I can't. All right, I'm going to take the edit group, and then I'm going to duplicate this group. I'm going to shut all these off. And I'm going to take these layers in this edit group copy, and I'm going to merge them all together with Command M. Okay, or not. Merge layers. Command E. So what I'm going to do here is just try to help out the detail a little bit. So I've got this paint group, and I'm going to say, shit. I'm going to say merged, edited layers. And I'm going to add a little bit of grain to them. This footage has like a little bit of grain on it that you can see over there, and our gradients and stuff don't really have that grain. It's a little bit on the smooth side. So I'm going to come in here, and I'm going to say... where is it? Is it in the filter gallery? Might be in the filter gallery. Oh, where's the doggone... Oh, I don't have the filter gallery? Why not? That's weird. Well, weak sauce, bro. Okay, I'm a little confused as to why I can't use the filter gallery.
You have to do them singly, not together.
It might be because this is in some weird... Oh, it's because it's 16-bit. So I'm going to change the mode to 8 bits per channel. And now it should let me filter gallery. Doesn't do 16-bit filters, unfortunately. Yeah, so in here, you can come in here and you can go to texture, grain. Obviously, that's way too much. So we just want like really, really subtle grain on this stuff. I'm gonna... Okay. Really subtle grain. I did regular. You can change the contrast around too if you want. I just want it to be something that'll fit, and that looked like it did a pretty good job. So there's all the filling that we did to kind of fix things up a little bit to make this frame work. This should work great now. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to save this as Light Play PSD. I'm going to make this a PNG file. Largest file size is fine. I'm going to save this out, and then we're going to bring it over to After Effects.
Is it okay if it still looks ugly?
Here, I'll give you mine, guys.
I think mine looks pretty cool.
If yours is working, then do it.
Yeah, dude. And yours...
Got in our background plate. It looks pretty good. Now what we're going to do is we're going to export Meredith's freeze frame, where we're going to like blow her into pieces. And we're going to make it a Photoshop document. So we go, we make sure that her layer is soloed. Yeah. And then we're going to go composition, save frame as, file. It's going to pull up the prompt. It's going to ask you what you want to save it and where you want to save it. I named this S12VB_Meredith solo. And then I'm going to say we've got Photoshop is the name of our document, which is just fine. Current settings. Make sure that this is not set to current settings. This should be set to best, full. We want to make sure that it's coming out at full resolution. If you export this layer as current settings and you're, say, set to 1/4, it's going to export it at a 1/4 resolution, and it's not going to work. So you're going to do all that work for nothing. And that's going to suck. Nobody likes that. All right, cool. I got all set up. I'm going to render it. Ding. It's done. And then we're going to bring that into Photoshop. Meredith Solo PSD. And then this is where we can utilize Photoshop's selection tools and stuff like that to make this whole process a little bit more easy. I like the quick selection tool. So are you guys there yet, though? Those of you who are following along. Okay, so get Meredith in, and then we'll go over this stuff. Photoshop, and we're cutting out Meredith, and I'm using the quick selection tool to kind of come in here and quickly select. And of course, in classic Photoshop fashion, it is only working semi-half rear. See, it just does this where it just wants to select the whole damn thing over here, but I don't want all that. All right, so I'm going to start working with this. So to refine the selection, here's what we're going to do. We're going to duplicate this layer, and then what we're going to do is we're going to do this layer mask. So what this does is it takes the layer and applies this mask to it. If we look at it, this is the selection that we have right now. That is not good enough. I want to fine tune this. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to, I just want this mask like half on. Okay, so I guess I'll do this. I'm going to turn the background layer on, and then, well, actually I'm going to duplicate the background layer again. Click OK. I'm just trying to get a reference so I can see what the heck I'm working on, and I'm going to turn the background layer just slightly transparent so I can see what I have in the foreground layer and what I have in the background layer, right? Because I need to come in here and get this whole doggone arm that didn't want to select properly. All right, so when you're working with a layer mask, this is the layer mask right here. You want to make sure that you are selecting the layer mask when you're working, right? So make your selection, and then you click on this little guy down here in the lower right hand corner. Add vector mask down in the right hand corner. And then what you do is you use the brush, right? So you use the brush tool, and you're using black and white. White is going to reveal what we want here in the foreground, and black is going to conceal it. So I'm going to use white to select out the rest of her arm over here, and I'm going to punch in here a little bit on the image so that I can actually see what the heck I'm doing. So I've got a kind of a soft brush selected right now. I'm going to increase the hardness just a little bit, and then I'm going to use the shift key, and I'm going to kind of use the brush to draw along this line. I'm holding the shift key down to do this so that I get some straight lines, and I can just kind of simply draw in roughly where her fingers and hands are and stuff. And if you want to, you can just come in here and paint, right? And this is adding this to the selection for Meredith. So I'm going to kind of get in here and get as close as I can. And then I'm going to decrease the size of my brush just a little bit. And that's the left and right bracket, by the way, to decrease the size of the brush. And come in here and paint around her fingers. Paint around this finger because I'm kind of missing that right now. Get in here on the thumb. Paint around that. Maybe bring up that background a little bit so I can tell what I need and what I don't need. All right. Don't want to do that. It's all right, Adam. I'll get you back where you need to be, buddy. All right. 17. Okay, so again, the way that kind of went is I had a selection, right? Once I got Meredith selected to where I wanted her selected, I duplicated the layer, and I used this little button in the lower right-hand corner. Hard to see if you're on. I just wanted to lift this up. That won't work. That's not how light works. This little guy here in the corner will take your selection and turn it into a layer mask. And the nice thing about doing that is it's non-destructive, right? Like if I shut this layer mask off, if I disable it, the whole image is still there. So it gives you ultimate flexibility in terms of making selections and getting exactly what you want and then fine-tuning them too. Works really well for that. So I can come back in here, click on it, and now I can see what I have selected for Meredith. And it looks like there's still some spots in here that I need to work on a little bit, like her finger is not filled in very well. There's some kind of like alpha channel holes that we can see.
I try and paint, it doesn't allow me, or whatever the hell is I'm supposed to be doing. It doesn't let me fill it in.
Okay, hang tight for 1 second. I'll pull up your machine so I can see what you're seeing. All right, say again there, Blazer One.
I'm not allowed to like fill in. Like,
Okay, so you have the background layer fully visible, so you can't see what you're actually doing.
oh, I've been fucking shit up this whole time.
Yeah. You have been fucking shit up this whole time.
I'm just gonna go back as far as I can. Okay, and then recreate the mask layer, and then solo that shit. Oh, that looks terrible.
Yep, it does. But
Oh,
that's why we do this method, because
Why is
it'll
it erasing it then?
it will help us refine it. So you want to use white or black when you're working on the layer mask.
Oh, yes.
When you click on the layer mask, it should automatically select white and black. And then I would go with a softer brush.
Stop the brush, yes.
Yep. And then bring your background transparency up a little bit.
So, just make it transparent.
You can just unlock that layer. And then you can, yep. And then you'll be able to have a kind of a little more than that. Like, I think I was at like 80 or 90%. Yeah, there you go. Now you have a reference for what you're seeing, what you want to see and what you don't want to see, right? So the name of the game now is to finish making this selection look good, right? So the edges of this selection are kind of garbage. Like if I turn this off, all the edges are really harsh. And one of the ways that you can kind of fix that is you can come through with your softer brush and just soften up the edges a little bit by running the brush over these layers. And remember, this doesn't have to be absolutely perfect. Just needs to pass for 7 frames. That is all.
How do I delete if I added in too much?
So click the X key. The X key will flip between black and white, and then you can add and subtract at will.
Fantastic, thank you.
So I'm just kind of coming in here and softening up these edges a little bit. Adam, do you still need some help there, dude?
Like, I just like kind of got lost in how to like get that like background copy layer and how to paint into it. Like the stuff you're doing right now, I'm not sure how to.
Okay, so let's back up. Here we go. I'm gonna pretend like I'm starting from the beginning. All right, so did you make your selection?
Yeah.
Okay, if you have your selection. Okay, cool. So you have you've got a whole bunch of extra layers there. What are those extra layers for?
I don't know. I just thought I might need them.
Delete all those layers. You do not need them.
Maybe.
There you go. Cool. All right, so you got a layer copy and okay, so click on the layer 0 copy.
Yep.
And then go down to the little vector box in the corner. This is the vector selection box right here. You click that, and that creates your selection. And now what you want to do is pull back the opacity here so that you can still kind of see that as reference.
And click that and paint.
Yep, and then you're going to use the brush tool, B for brush tool.
Yep.
And then white will paint in, and X, push the X key, and black will paint out. And then you can increase or decrease the size of your brush with the tilde keys. So next to P, the 2 keys next to P,
Okay.
those keys will shrink or grow your brush.
How do I grab a select like the whole thing and just move it? Because anytime I take H, like it gives me a hand, but then it like does this weird thing where it just moves my whole fucking thing.
Yeah, it moves your whole screen. That's
Yeah,
exactly
so-
what it's supposed to do.
Well, it's doing it in like a weird manner. Like,
Oh wait, it's moving the background.
That's what I'm saying, man.
Wait, the hand tool's moving the background?
Yeah. It does kind of what I want it to, but it zooms it out to make it happen. And then it's like, alright, fuck you, dude. You're a piece of shit. I'm like, well, I mean, you're not wrong, but it's shit. Let me do my work.
Is this a conversation?
Oh my god, what is this? I did it. I think I did it. We good.
Yeah, you're doing it, dude.
Yeah, it's good
You're in good shape, man.
Fuck yeah, dude.
All right, so again,
Best looking hand I can.
I'm coming in here and all I'm really trying to do here is make a decent selection on Meredith. That is all I am trying to do, and I'm gonna soften this brush up even more for the hair areas, because we want this hair to not have a bunch of background in it if we can help it.
Is there a way to get her fingers separated? So like, That'll
Be
be
a badass about.
So, I mean, this is, Zach, this is going to be like, you just have to kind of toggle the opacity of the layer behind so that you can kind of see where you need to paint. But again, keep in mind that this does not have to be perfect. It does not have to be perfect. It just needs to be good, and close will be good enough. Because remember, like, once we get to the still frame, pieces of her are just going to fly everywhere. That's what's going to happen. So I'm going to just come in here and get around the kind of edges here, soften this up a little bit, increase the size of my brush, paint it with the right color. My brush is maybe a little too big. This is all looking like garbage over here. Okay, if you need to, another really helpful trick for when you're drawing out these masks is to use the shift key. So if you click and then you hold shift, it'll just draw a straight line with the brush to wherever you clicked. So that can be really helpful for kind of like drawing out these junky areas of the image.
I feel like there's a lot of things that would have been useful to know a while ago. Just like straight lines.
Well, I mean, if you took a Photoshop class, they should be teaching you this stuff in
Well,
Photoshop
we
class.
Also learned fucking intro to communication and shit.
God, I wish I had my tablet.
Yeah, right?
It hurts.
Stylus is king, man. Let me
Yeah.
tell you.
I once fucking did like frame by frame animation and After Effects on a music video where like faces were drawn on the side of faces and they were like demon faces that like mocked up to the words. Literally took me like 40 hours and I was doing it with just a Mac mouse and it was fucking terrible.
Yeah, Stylus, dude. It is absolutely worth the price.
This is before I knew what said things were.
Like, get like an old Intuyos 2 Wacom tablet and put that crap on your desk forever, because it's like gold having one of those things.
Are you saying you'd rather have that than gold?
If I'm gonna continue to doing what I'm doing, yeah, I'm gonna need the Wacom tablet.
Exactly. That's what I'm saying.
Although if I did have a brick of gold that was the size of my Wacom tablet, I would probably be a pretty happy camper.
Dude, the brick of shot Ferguson.
All right, so there we go.
Person.
I have now separated Meredith from the background. The selection is good enough for what we want to do, and now we can take this into After Effects and start making parts out of all the different pieces of Meredith that we want to explode into space. We can have her face fly off. We could put a skeleton in there if we wanted to. There's so much crap we could do. So the like quality of this effect is really just going to depend on like your patience and how much detail you want to go into to make Meredith fly to pieces. So yeah, because it's 10 to 7 already, let's do this. Let's take a 13-minute break, come back at 7 o'clock, and we will rock and roll with taking this into After Effects and starting to play with how we can make her fly into a million pieces. Here's kind of where we're at. We've got our shot of Meredith, and now we're about ready to make her explode because we've got a few things. We've got her solo layer, which is what we're going to explode. We've got the original video, which is not working right here. It works right up into the point where she actually explodes. We've got the plate shot, which fills in the background for the explosion. And then we've got the plate with no light on it, which I've been playing around with trying to get it to fade between light and no light so that we can create a nice smooth fade. So if you're watching this, with the layers on and no Meredith. You can see that we have a good flexible effect starting to happen here. So one of the things we need to do right away is like, let's figure out where things need to go. All right, so who is not currently following along in After Effects? Riley, are you following along?
I'm just watching.
You're watching? Do you want to follow along? Because I can give you all the parts.
That would be awesome.
Okay,
Yeah,
so
I would like
let's
the parts too.
let's make that happen.
Sorry it took so long. I had a lot of questions.
Dude, no apologies.
No worries, buddy. All right, so let's see. You guys need the Meredith Solo and the Meredith Explodes light plate, right? And then you should have the dark plate already, the plate with no light. You guys have that one, right?
I have all that. I'm just gonna watch this and just actually go back home and do this step by step.
Okay, if you can follow along, I would suggest it. But if you want to follow, that's totally whatever you want to do. All right, so I'm gonna give. Do you want the parts or no, Charles? Okay, so Riley, I'm gonna give you the parts.
I also have a question to ask.
Sure, shoot, dude.
When I turn on the one that has all the masks for Meredith, I get the screwed silhouette of the arm still.
Okay, hold on one second.
Why do we need the blue plate with the light?
Because when her body flies to pieces, you need to have that lit,
It's like plus
that
look
lit,
like a
that
second.
lit background.
Because like the thing is, though, what's weird about this is that like there's a shot, there's a frame where it's like half the light goes away,
Mm-hmm.
and she's still there.
Yep.
And at this point, we're gonna like do some compositing and make it so that her body parts are gone, and then it goes away with the light, and then the darkness.
We're just gonna have her go piff in like 4 frames. She's gonna be a bloody mist all over the room.
Okay, if I fuck something up, you'll just guide me through it.
No, it's all good. You're gonna do fine. All right.
I think I might be missing something at this point. I'm not sure.
All right. So here come the. Okay. I'm just replacing. All right. You should have both of them, Riley. Pull them into After Effects. Okay. So just in terms of demonstrating kind of what we were going to have happen here. So this Meredith Solo layer, let's pretend that we're going to do all kinds of our crazy animation on this thing, but let's just do this. Let's, for craps and giggles, let's just put the shatter effect on this layer. And we're going to say rendered, and we're going to change the shape
What layer do you have?
from bricks to glass.
Is that Meredith Solo? Wait,
Yep, Meredith Solo.
What the?
My Meredith Solo's a lot longer than Meredith Solo.
It's because I shortened mine to only what I'm going to need for the explosion. So basically, Meredith Solo layer, let me shut this off. This Meredith Solo layer is only visible for like 4 frames. Because this is going to happen really quick.
I think I got my shit backwards. It's my Meredith Solo. It's not Meredith Solo.
So my Meredith Solo starts at 110 frames, 1 second 10 frames, and goes to 1 second 13 frames, and then it's done.
Yeah,
So
I
it's
fucked something up.
she's literally going to explode in like 3 or 4 frames, maybe a few more if we decide we need it.
Yeah, I don't have that like still of her that cut out anymore. Wait, maybe. Hold on. No.
You don't have it? All right, well I'm going to give it to you then.
I don't know what happened.
One more time too.
Yeah, you bet.
Where did my shit go?
Okay, 8, 3, copy.
Why the fuck? What's my Meredith Solo then? Just her on her shit?
All right, they're coming across.
Alright, I guess.
They're there.
Wait, which copy?
There you go. They're there.
Alright,
They're there.
They are there. I
They
really
are
get that
there.
pronunciation of when you're gonna fuck someone's mind up, you know what I'm saying? They are there.
Okay, so we're going to use shatter on our Meredith solo layer. And we played with shatter before, right? So this is just going to be to like set up the idea of what we're going to do with Meredith's layer, right? So I want Meredith to start exploding from like basically the middle of her chest. Like let's say that other Meredith shot her right in the heart, and that's where our shatter is going to start shattering from. Now what you need to do is you need to control the forces in the shatter in order for this to work correctly. So, and the forces should also be coming from the same position as the rest of, I think, is it
Wait,
depth
are
we
you
do?
using the PNGs for this?
Yes.
Oh fuck.
This is the solo PNG layer that we cut out in Photoshop.
My PNG shit's all like in like a cluster of photos for some reason. I don't know what that's all about. I give up.
Import them one at a time, Chris.
Yeah, I tried that earlier. And it was
It
all
for After Effects likes to automatically make multiple PNGs into
Yeah,
sequences.
it's After Effects a bunch of dickheads.
Sometimes they should just ask you instead of.
Hey man, it's really what you
All
want
right,
to
you
do.
seeing what I'm seeing? Check this out. Check this out right now. Look at this. Boom.
Oh.
Right?
Oh.
Cool. So I'm playing with the radius on Force 1 is what I'm playing with. Force 2 is doing nothing right now. So don't worry about Force 2. So Force 1, I have the position of Force 1 set up at the same point that I set the origin for the shapes at. Does that make sense? Okay, we're playing with shatter, y'all. That's what we're at. Do you have shatter on your PNG layer of Meredith Solo? Okay, if you do, that is excellent. The way in which you control the shatter is with the radius, right? As soon as you start setting this radius up higher, you will start seeing the effect of the shatter. So you can visualize this a little bit better if you look at the wireframe plus forces, and I'm going to turn this on black. So here you can see the wireframe of the shatter, and you can see where the forces are. So the radius is this big blue circle right here, and as we animate the radius outwards, more parts of Meredith shatter away. One way we can make this effect look cooler is if we set the repetitions up higher for the glass, and then maybe change the directionality of them. So now if I go back to rendered, watch what happens when I increase the radius on Meredith. Slowly tick the radius up, and she flies into a million pieces. She's flying in one direction though, and that's kind of not working for me.
Lost me, man.
All right. Solo Meredith solo layer PNG.
She low. Yeah, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Put shatter on there.
Yeah.
All right. We're in Force 1.
Yeah.
Working on the radius of Force 1. The way that we get this to animate is we need to set the radius big enough so that she shatters away. And this is why we need more time.
Put shatter on Meredith, and like Meredith
Was already
was
shattered.
gone, and
Yeah.
like
Yes, because you need to control the radius in order for you to see what the hell's actually happening.
It's like just not there. It's like a wireframe of the.
Yes, so set your view to rendered, and it will show you the rendered pieces.
Okay.
The start of my comp with where she's at, she's already fucking gone. She's already broken up.
Yeah.
Yes, you need to adjust the
I
radius.
got my radius to 1.16, man.
No. Set your radius to 0 to start. Wherever you want the
You said we were gonna do keyframes
Okay,
for
hold
this?
on. Stop.
Okay, there we go.
Stop.
I got you.
Yeah.
I'm a fucking genius.
You have to keyframe this thing. Shatter does not work right off the bat perfectly. You have to
For
set
some
it up to
reason,
make
I
it work.
forgot about keyframing because we've been doing so much rotoscope. My brain's just fucking ridiculous.
Yes, you need to keyframe. All right. So you set the radius to what you want it to be at the beginning of the explosion, at the end of the explosion, right? So I have the radius animating out basically to cover the entire composition by that third frame. And then if you let this stuff stay on the screen, the other thing that we need to do is we kind of need to adjust the gravity and the strength of these forces. So the stronger you make these forces, the faster Meredith will fly to pieces, right?
I'm not able.
What?
I can't seem to get my Meredith to fall apart.
So we did a whole bunch of work on this, and I'm sorry I forgot to record some of it. All right, so we have Meredith, and she's shattering into a million pieces right now. And we did that with the shatter effect, which is right here. And in order to make shatter work, you need to go into the force and adjust the radius and keyframe the radius. And if you want to, keyframe the strength as well. We just keyframed the radius. I started the radius at 0.5 so that she doesn't pause and sit on the screen for a long time, so that there's a little bit of motion on her as the explosion happens. So that's kind of where we're at. Now what we're doing is we're gonna put a layer of blood and guts in behind, so that this shatter has a little bit more interest to it. All right. So now what we're doing is we're over in Safari, and we are looking for blood and guts, and we're going to images. Blood and guts. Perfect. This is perfect.
Demonetized.
Oh, let's see. I mean, honestly, this could probably work right here, but it's really low resolution. So we need to find something that's got some resolution to it. Texture. Let's try that. Come on, give me something that's got some resolution to it. That's kind of cool, actually. That's kind of cool, too. She's made up of eyes inside.
That's what we figured out.
So these procedural textures are awesome. Like, if we wanted, one of the things we could do is we could really amp this up with some 3D work, too. Like, if we had Element 3D, we could make, like, a rough body model of Meredith's shape and texture that with the blood and guts procedural texture so that it actually has, like, real texture to it. Shatter that instead of just a flat image. So I'm going to try to find something that looks remotely interesting. Hey, this looks good right here. Blood and guts, 4,000 by 4,000. Let's use that. Hey, that's not...
Watermarks and shit on them.
I want the original thing, man. I guess I'll just take it in 25. Yeah, here we go. All right. I'll just shoot this off to all of your screens here quick, guys.
Okay, it just looks like crusty ketchup.
Just looks like it's okay though, because it's all going to be in motion.
Yeah, crusty ketchup.
It's the crusty ketchup, the best kind of ketchup.
You like frosty spoons.
Okay, so let's get this over to you guys real quick. Blood and guts, copy. I needed to go to more machines than that. Let me see, 3. Oh, fudge-sicles. Okay, cancel that. Just do this. Let's go. 17, 12, 10, 8, and 3. Copy. Sorry for those of you who are watching this tutorial and are annoyed by my facilitating of images to the rest of the students. I don't pause every time that I should, otherwise I forget and I miss things. So, tough! Alright, you should all have blood and guts on your desktop.
Oh no, it's so dirty.
Alright, so let's take blood and guts and bring blood and guts into our project. Come on now. Bring blood and guts into our project, and then what we're going to do is we're going to go into our Meredith solo blood and guts layer, and what we're going to do is we're going to take blood and guts, and we're going to lay this down behind her. And here's the other. So let's take blood and guts and pre-compose this. And then what we're going to do is we're going to take more copies of this. Oh, come on now. Pre-compose. I want this to move all attributes and adjust composition duration to the time spent of the selected layers. And now, yes, we should have what I want. Okay, cool. So now all I'm going to do is I'm just going to fill this entire screen up with blood and guts.
Did you decompose the Meredith solo or?
I did. So what we're trying to do here is we're trying to take Meredith's layer and we're going to use it as a track mat so that we get blood and guts inside of Meredith's body, basically.
Or did it do a track?
right? So we're using Meredith's solo layer that has alpha on it, and we're using Luma Alpha, or Track Matte Alpha Matte is what we're using to get the blood and guts inside there. So you need a composition that has the blood and guts in it, and I'm going to try to make this so that maybe what I'll do is I'm going to try repetiling this instead.
That's what I was thinking.
The only problem with repetile is it soaks up a lot of processing power. Not Peppa, Repa. Repetile. And with this, you can just expand this out in each direction as far as you need. And then I think if you do, no, one of these will make it so that it flips horizontal and vertical. Doggone it, which one is it? Unfold. There we go. That'll work. So we've,
That thing is not really working.
looks like something out of Doom.
Yeah, it does.
Say again there, Zach?
I'm trying to get back to so I pre-composed Meredith. When I put the blood and guts thing on there, it's not like going around it or whatever.
Okay, I'm gonna pull up your screen here real quick.
That's pretty nifty.
It looks like I'm looking into one of those bloody telescope thingies.
Yo, it looks like you're looking
Come on.
at ketchup.
Hurry up!
Catch up kaleidoscope.
The ketchup kaleidoscope, yes.
Okay, Zach, show me what's not happening now.
So I pre-composed Meredith and I put the blood and guts thing on there. But it's like, and then I tried
Do you have any blood and guts in your blood and guts thing? Oh, it's visible for one. You need to shut the visibility of the above layer off. No.
oh, like that.
Yes. Hold on, I'm going to take a look at
And
this.
do we want to do the same thing for our main and bring it to alpha for track?
Okay, wait a second. Something's not right here. There's not...
Looks
Okay.
like meat pieces are flying at us. That's nice.
Okay, Meredith's solo layer needs to be above this. It's supposed to be Meredith...
I like this one thing the whole time.
What is try this one
I couldn't
PNG?
make it work, so I just kept exporting.
Okay, and this has shatter on it. Okay, we need not to have shatter on
Oh,
this.
okay. I've been lost for a bit now. I mean, that's why it's named that, because I kept trying different ones to get to work.
I'm still confused as to what the hell is actually happening here. Okay, pause this for a minute. So now we've got Meredith exploding with guts and stuff behind her, which is fun. One of the other cool things that we can do now that we have plates that we can actually control and use is we can control when the light actually fades out. So if I take and add an opacity change to my plate with no light, and then I have my light plate behind it that we used, you can kind of like take these keyframes and have the light kind of fade out a little later, or start fading and fade a little longer if you want it to fade out over time. Yeah, I'm interested to see what this looks like when we actually turn on some motion blur.
I got one motion blur on if you want to see it.
Yeah, it takes a minute, doesn't it?
Yeah. like
Oh
that's
yeah,
really
see
nice.
that's exactly what you want to see right there. It's looking pretty good. Dude, when we add fire, smoke, lighting effects to this, additional like her kind of cracking maybe from the center with light kind of shining out of it, like this is going to start to look pretty cool. I'm going to take my force motion blur and throw it on my Meredith solo layer. All right, now we're getting somewhere. So if we play this thing back, and honestly, this shot we're probably only going to use like right here to right there. That looks pretty great, dude. Oh man, it's funny. Oh man, that's funny. So we still have Meredith shattering into a million pieces with blood and guts behind her, and now we're going to start doing a couple of things. First and foremost, we're going to do a little bit of organization. So we're starting to get more and more files into this project, and we need to make sure things stay straight. So I'm going to make a couple folders here. I'm going to make a blood and guts folder, and I'm going to put anything related to blood and guts in the blood and guts folder, except for the pre-comp. That does not need to go in there.
When I think the loading guts over is kind of getting gets dark. Oh, no. When I go here, it like just darkens.
Okay, it's because you're luma matting. You're not alpha matting. So why are we alpha matting as opposed to luma matting?
Oh, I don't know.
So what does luma mean? What is luma looking at?
The light.
No. Luminance is what in video, you guys?
Like, no. You just said no.
Two colors. One starts with a B and one starts with a white.
Black and white.
Right. Luma is black and white, and the gradient between black and white, right? So whenever you're talking luminance in video, that's the black and white layer of video. Luminance and chrominance is what they used to say for like old school video. You'd have your chroma, which is your red, green, blue, and then you'd have your luminance, which was your black and white, basically. So luma looks at the black and white for the matte, right? So it was looking all funky because it was seeing varying levels of black and white on Meredith. Alpha is looking at just the alpha channel around her, right? And that's why now it looks correct, is because you're looking at just the alpha channel, not the black and white of the layer.
Okay. I think I got it now.
Oops, there you go. Sweet. Okay, so the next thing we want to do is we want to start adding some additional effects in here. So I'm doing a little bit of housekeeping. I'm going to make a couple folders here. I'm going to have a comps folder where I'm going to put my pre-comps. I've got a fills folder. I got a blood and guts folder. I got a stills folder where I'm putting my plate PNGs and things. And then I'm going to have a new folder for footage as well, where the original shots are going to go. And then our original shot that we're working on, I'm going to rename this scene 12 VB _ Meredith explodes. Explosives. There we go. And if you want to put that at the top of your stack, you can add an asterisk to the front of it, and then it'll add it to the top of the stack. And then let's go ahead and save this so that everybody's caught up. All right, so now everybody should have all of these fun blood and gut effects, and I'm going to pull these over and dump them into After Effects so that I can start looking at them and seeing what they look like. And they look like they're very low resolution. They are. They're 720 by 480. Boo, ooh, ooh. Do we have any high res blood and guts?
No, you gotta pay for them bitches.
And boo earns. All right, well, we'll use them anyway. We'll see how far we can get with this. All right, this one's 1920 by 1080. All right, that's better. That's kind of fun. We might be able to use that on the wall. Let's see if we can. Let's see if we can put that on the wall. So she starts to explode. Let's take Blood Splatter 3 in and place it kind of on the background. I'm going to set this up so that it renders in right about here. So we get this little... Okay, where does the actual beginning of this thing start? There we go. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to set this in 3D space. I'm I'm gonna rotate it a little bit so that it kind of matches the wall, and I'm gonna scale it way up. Scale it kind of up, I guess. Scoot it over here to the side. And then we're gonna add some, pull the lightness out of this quite a bit. Desaturate it a little bit. Say again?
Where did you get the blood splatter?
I just copied them to your desktop.
Oh, thank you. I wonder, stills or fills?
What?
Video. Never mind.
Yes, video. I'm also gonna play around with some modes here too. Might try multiply. Ooh, that's really dark. I mean, which isn't necessarily a bad thing. I wish it was more realistic.
You want realistic? You want realistic?
But who knows? Maybe there's some other stuff in here that we can use. So I'm gonna find the big ones that are
Oh
actually
man, no, I'm getting rid of that. I don't like anything about that.
blood smoke. Ooh, I can use that for sure.
Where's the blood smoke in that? And which?
Blood smoke. I'm gonna throw that right over the top.
Yeah, so that's
It
the-
is.
Right over the top. Right here in the middle. And then we're gonna scale it up. Yeah, dude. That's great. All right, fun. I'm going to set the mode on this guy to multiply as well, so that it's kind of just a dark splotch. Oh, wait a second. Doesn't work. Doesn't work as well. Got rid of it. We don't want to get rid of it, but it does. It is way too bright, so we need to probably need to pull a little bit of the lightness out of it. Let's try this and see what it looks like in full motion. I think we need the smoke to start just a little earlier. Yeah, almost like it's spurting right there. Let's try this too. Let's take the blood smoke, duplicate it, rotate it. That's looking pretty good. I mean, honestly, that whole wall would be painted with blood. So I would love to find a better blood splatter that's actually...
Seems like District 9.
Yeah, dude, for real. No, these are all super low res. Blood front 2. Let's see what this looks like.
Kinda wish we could go faster.
Oh, we can use that. So we'll throw this over the top too. Move this down here. Scale it way up. These blood effects are not ideal. Make this super dark red. It freezes and then moves. What the F, dude? That's not terrible. It's just that one little splatter on the wall. It's kind of laughable. I almost want to get a white wall and a bucket of dark red paint and just be sponge all over the wall and shoot it at the right angle so that we could take that on white, bring it in, multiply it, put it over the top, and it would start to work pretty well.
Who is the guy who's the painter strikes with the
Jackson
paint.
Pollock.
I mean, like 90% of artists
Yes,
these
Jackson
days.
Pollock.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Just do that.
All right, we'll get rid of the stupid splotch because that just doesn't work right now.
Redonkulous, right?
I mean, unless you like scaled this shit way up, that honestly could work.
No, that's the word. That's the
Oh my god, dude, that's
Talk about
funny.
Fucking B-film quality bullshit.
That is funny. That is what that is. That is funny. Let's do this. Let's
I'll hold this block.
First
My
hit
man's just not giving up.
value.
No, dude. I never give up. Never give up. Never. I mean,
Okay, watch
what if I do
Galaxy
this?
Quest.
What if I
That
do
sounds like a
this?
movie.
Let's go
That's 10 out of 10.
detail preserving upscale.
Oh, this piece of fruit.
Great job. Oh.
Hat looks like it's on a different plane of existence.
Dude. All right, I'm gonna see if I can't use a little force motion blur on this to make this look even better yet.
I am liking the slither direction this is going.
The splatter kind of comes up from below though, so it's kind of weird getting it placed right. All right, let's check this out and see what Come on, you got to admit that's pretty freaking funny, y'all. Some sound effects on that thing. It's going to be dope.
Yeah, just slurping that shit.
And this is why she said she didn't have a clear shot when she was shooting at DW, because she would have literally exploded. When in doubt, just make it bigger.
Oh, God.
Oh boy!
That's,
It went from R-rated
it's
to
working,
PG
guys. It's
very
working.
quickly.
Oh, man.
The internal explosion.
And since it's hitting the
It
screen,
went
you
straight
got like
from
a camera
R-rated
shake
to
on there.
G-rated
Like,
very quickly.
Oh, for sure, dude. For sure. All right.
How do they do those effects where it's like when they shoot something? Like, do they actually have like blood hit the camera when there's blood? No, not sick, dude. Don't fucking give your stamp of approval to this.
doesn't look bad.
Oh, it does. It looks so bad.
It looks better than.
Well, just remember, it's only like a 2-second shot. It just needs to sell for
The
2
blood on the wall
seconds.
needs to fucking go, dude.
Yeah, but if you add like a nice wet sound effect to that, like
All right. Well, maybe if you line up because
like a towel hitting the wall type of
blood
thing.
needs to go faster, man. And like, could you start by doing like a thing where like you
Which
bring
which blood needs to go faster?
the one that hits the wall? And can we
Okay.
do a thing where like we like start with the scale and then like keyframe the scale to get bigger so that when it hits the wall it's like that, so it's not just like boom.
Yeah, dude,
boom.
all that stuff is doable.
'Cause,
Absolutely.
like that's gonna give it that more realistic look as it goes.
I'm trying to get this as far along as possible
Yeah.
before 850.
Before, like I said, I haven't done the blood splatter. I got, like I said, so what I do with like the inside is I gave it gravity so it falls down. But I don't
All right,
know,
so
man.
let's play with a few more things here. So one of the other things that I'd like to be able to do is create some sort of like pre-explosion effect
something
on
that like creates.
Right, so we've got this
Right.
laser blast or whatever that's supposed to fly in and hit her,
You
right?
see that hit her in the.
That's what we want to do, right? So this shot is quite literally only going to be from when the light starts hitting her and she goes splat and just explodes.
Are we gonna create an energy ball that hits her? Dude, fuck yes, let's do it.
We could do that. I was thinking more along the lines of like, yes, okay, let's create the energy ball that hits her. I'm fine with this.
Fucking
Let's
dope.
do this. Okay. So this is kind of the beginning of our shot now. We see all this craziness happen, and this crap like just explodes all over the wall, paints every surface. This is great. I actually like the blood splatter now that it's way bigger.
You're an animal.
Works
You're a
really well.
fucking Animal, man.
Splat. Dude, I can just hear the sound too, like just
Should I
like
find just the wettest fucking blood sample
yes,
you can get?
dude, for real. Do it.
Hey, that one.
Oh, okay, so you see what YouTube got.
Whoop.
Yeah, and as you were saying, Chris, like yes, you can absolutely do stuff with your scaling. Like if you want to get this stuff to scale up right, you know, don't be afraid to get in there and like add those additional effects to it. For me, like this could even go like even bigger. Like just let this thing scale out monstrously. Yeah, then it looks like it's flying at the camera. It looks like just chunks everywhere. I wish we would have had Meredith actually react to that a little bit more, like in camera, be like, "Holy crap!" You know, and then start running, or like look at the gun and go, "Clear shot, give me a break," you know, something fun like that. Okay, so laser blast. So the best way to create these laser blasts is with white layers. So you start with a white layer and you build it up to what you want it to look like, and then you can add glows and trails and particles and whatever you want to do to like really make it work. So the other thing that we could do is like preliminary effects here before we start making our stuff is let's see what other fun things we might have in. So I think Rampant has some yeah, dust, sparks, and embers, right? So they have these. Okay, that we don't care about so much because it's really slow. Ooh, but that's kind of cool. Like this, you could use this stuff for blood effects too, or for like, huh? I have it all in this drive up here, guys. Sparks though, that's not gonna work. That could work. So like what I would like to see is like when this hits her flesh, there's some sparking there, and it's like just a couple frames before the like blood explosion and everything goes everywhere. Let's see what they got for fire too. No.
What is the place that you got this from, though?
Rampant Design.
Okay.
Rampant, and then these are all free.
Are they?
Yes.
Okay.
If you have a thumbstick, dude, bring it up. I'll give you the files.
Hell yes.
It's several gigabytes. So let's do it at the either
That's fine.
whatever. We'll get it figured out.
Like everything on here. There's too much shit. Jesus.
Paint, smokes. So smoke we might be able to make use of. Let's see what we got for smoke here. Like we need just like, not this. I need, yes, like this. This we could work with, right? So this could work for blood smoke too if we wanted it to. So like one thing to think about whenever you guys are making VFX and stuff like this is like, how can I take stuff that says smoke and make it work for what I want it to work for? So let's say we have this smoke effect, right? We're gonna put this on, screen it. Move this kind of over to here. And then we can time remap this thing. So like, let's set this a couple frames before, and then we'll go, where is it? Time, enable time remapping. Then we get keyframes at the front. So all I really want to do here is I want to kind of find out where the smoke starts, which is almost right away. I'm going to set a keyframe there. I'm going to bring this over to like right a couple frames before the explosion's really happening. And then I'm gonna take, holy buckets, I'm gonna take another keyframe, put it kind of over here, and I'm gonna add another keyframe in, And then we can like have this smoke go too. So let's take this thing, blow it up a little bit. Smoke's actually kind of cool, but it's way over the top right now. All right, so let's see. Starts happening a little early, which is great. Yeah, and I mean, then if you took this smoke and you did a hue saturation on it and then colorized it, you could have freaking dark red pink mist if you wanted to, and have this add to the overall aesthetic of the whole thing. You could try playing with different modes too, like if you want to darken this down or whatever, you can come in here and darken it down even more. So adding additional effects in over the top of what we're already doing will really help, and it'll help offset the like freeze frame where we have her freeze. The whole idea is hiding that freeze frame so it doesn't look like she's just standing there frozen and then explodes. Sputch.
Exactly.
Yeah, and it's kind of cool to see the dust clearing at the end of this
It's
thing.
like literally like both the
Yeah, and I might even go so far as to like pull this out once it's kind of reached its threshold, have it kind of fade out.
That's cool.
Right, so like it's there and then it's not. Okay, so laser bolts. Here we go. Let's do laser bolts. All right, so the first thing that we need to do for our laser bolt is let me think about this. How do we want to do this? What's the best way? Do you want your classic laser bolt, or should we let's look at some reference real quick.
Let's do those pew-pews, man.
The pew-pews.
Oh, yeah.
Laser bolts. Images. You're like, do you want your Star Wars laser bolt? Something bigger and crazier looking.
Do a fucking full-on orb ass motherfucker.
Okay, so we're gonna do an Orbass mofo. Alright. So let's make an Orbass mofo. So first thing that I want to do is I actually just want to create the element. So let's make a new layer solid. Or a new composition, sorry. And we're gonna call this laser bolt. We don't need this to be full HD or full on 4K. So let's just set this to like 1000 by 1000 because it's going to be smaller. It does not need to be huge for this to work. Click OK. All right, so then what we're going to do is we're going to just take a shape layer and let's just make a white kind of laser bolty looking thing inside this box. So in terms of kind of what I'm thinking is I'm going to do I'm almost going to make it like a Pac-Man ghost. Then I'm going to kind of go like this, and I'm going to bring it around, and then I'm going to adjust till I get it where I like it. And remember, this is going to be moving super effing fast, so it doesn't need to be absolutely perfect. Close perfect will be good enough. Kind of like a missile-y looking thingy with little tendrils on it. Just stupid and over the top. Kind of like so is what I'm thinking. So let's pump this up to 50% so we can see it a little bit nicer. All right, so things that I'm going to do to this. So I'm going to start playing around with this thing and adding some animation to it to make it look more interesting before we bring it in and start making it look all lasery. First thing I'm going to do is I'm going to scale this down a little bit so it's got some border around it, so that whatever we do over on the other side, we've got enough alpha to play with. So I shrunk it down a little bit. Next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to come in here and I'm going to grab Ripple. I'm going to throw that on there. And I'm going to have this thing ripple. And hopefully it'll actually ripple this. It might not do it. Yeah, it won't do it because it's a stupid shape layer. All right, so let's do this. Let's take the shape layer, pre-compose it. We'll call this laser bolt shape. Move all attributes, adjust composition. That's totally fine. Now we can ripple this thing. I want the center of the ripple to kind of be at the front of the... Yeah, there we go. Now we're talking. Yeah, there we go. Ooh, that's kind of cool looking, actually. Yeah, it looks plasma-y. And you can animate the phase too. So like if we wanted to make this thing look like it was kind of swimming through the air a little bit, we could animate that phase. I think I might animate the phase just nice and slowly. Let's see, I'm going to have the phase start like right there. And then I kind of go all the way to the end. Oh, you know what I need to do? I need to like set this back to 0. Yeah, there we go. That's where I want it to start. I'm going to copy and paste that same keyframe. Why is there any animation? I'm not animating anything else. That's weird. Alright, but I'm down. Looks cool. And then the radius. I want the radius to go so it goes all the way out towards the ends like that. There we go. That's kind of cool looking. Alright, cool. Fun. I'm gonna like shrink this thing down on the... make it look a little more bullety, I think. There we go. Just playing around with the placement of that, where it's actually rippling from to see if it... Ooh, yeah, there we go. Nice. Okay, cool. So we've got a nice little ripple effect to it. Now it's got some animation to it. Now we can bring it in and start layering it up and making it look like a laser bolt would look. Okay. So let's bring our laser bolt layer in. Drop it on. And then we only need the laser bolt from like right here to where it kind of starts to hit, right about there. All right. Let's cut that out. So I think what we do is we have the laser bolt hit, maybe even less time than that, like 5 frames seems about right. Cool. Okay, so now we got to animate this thing, right? So let's do that. Let's take this thing. Let's find out where it's going to stop, which is kind of like right here. And we might need to do some kind of like flourish effect or something like that where it actually like hits our body. So that's a whole different thing. But let's scale this a little bit. Let's rotate this a little bit so that it looks like it's kind of coming in from the right angle. And then it's going to hit. I'm going to move this over so that I can make sure that it hits right where you want it to hit. Okay, so that's the last frame right there. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to keyframe that. So position, scale, and rotation, just in case. I mean, I don't think we're going to change the rotation, but position and scale for sure. And then, obviously, this is coming from over here. I'm going to zoom out just a little bit. And then what I'm going to do is I'm just going to kind of watch until that keyframe line lines up with this middle dot so that it kind of looks like it has the right trajectory to it. Sweet. Okay. So the other thing that you can do if you want to straight away is turn on your motion blur. So that, oh, that's 3D, not motion blur. Motion blur, that's what I want. Yeah, motion blur is going to help a lot on this thing. Boom. All right. So now making it look like a proper laser bolt. That's going to be important, right? So this is where we are going to start layering up. You guys remember me talking about layering up, right? No? Wow, okay.
Yes, I very much remember.
Okay, so let's start layering this thing up. So let's take the laser bolt and let's duplicate it right away. And then let's go in here and let's fast blur it. Fast box blur it and increase the radius of the blur. And then let's take that laser bolt that we just blurred and duplicate it again and blur it even more. And then I think, cool, I think I'm going to duplicate that again, and then I'm going to say just vertical or just horizontal blur. So it gets even more crazy looking. I mean, I would honestly do, this is another thing that I would do to this to make it feel even more insane. Is do we have any sort of flare in here? Oh, good. We can generate a lens flare. So let's go new solid, make it a black solid. Click OK. We're gonna call this lens flare. Got our black solid now. I'm gonna pull this up over the top of the laser bolt, and I'm just gonna lower the transparency just a little bit, so that we can kind of animate this where it needs to go for these 5 frames. So I'm going to say generate lens flare, and then where the flare center is, I'm going to kind of set the flare center over here off the edge. And then I'm going to set the flare center. I need to animate this crapola. Set the flare center like right here at the end. And then why can't I see it? That's the question mark right now.
Is the opacity down?
What the hell is this? Okay, let's go set this to 8-bit per channel. Did I turn it all the way down? I did turn it all the way down. Okay, cool. Thank you. So this lens flare is really poor. I would not use this for real because it's a garbage lens flare that looks like a garbage lens flare. But let's go ahead and try it anyway. Let's change the mode to screen. Starts to give it a little bit better look. What happens if we just like force motion blur this thing so that it looks a little less hokey? There we go. That's better. Set that to 32 so it looks decent. Now we got a nice bright lens flare-y looking deal. Not terrible. All right. Okay, so things that I want to do. I want to take the lens flare and the laser bolts, and I want to pre-compose all these yet again. So I'm going to take the lens flare, all the laser bolts. I'm going to pre-compose these. I'm going to adjust the new composition of the span of the selected layers, and we're going to call this laser bolt color. And click OK. And then we're going to go ahead and we're going to colorize this whole thing. So we're going to say hue saturation. Put that on here. We're gonna screen this over the top of our layers, and now we can colorize this whole bolt. So like we can find that kind of like crazy blue that we're seeing everywhere. Oversaturate it a little bit so it looks really nice and bright. It's looking pretty good. That's so hilarious. It actually works really well with the footage. That's surprising. Well, shouldn't be surprised. We're good at this stuff. Who am I kidding?
My bolt is not taking the color on. Even when I click colorize, I'm on hue saturation.
All right, let me see what we got. Okay. Bolt, colorize. Well, that's weird. Oh, saturation. Kind of need to have saturation there for it to work.
Okay. I guess I've been staring at these screens for too fucking long.
Yeah, it looks the bolt looks a little slow to me.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking.
I think it needs to move quicker.
If you don't put it in there like at the right time, I guess it's perspective, but it's like you need to have it so it transfers because like as you notice, like it lights up more. You know, so it's like the second that like the light hit, that's when I shot it. But I guess it doesn't really matter because they don't really know the perception of how far away it is.
Well, and again, I think there's a few things that we can do here. Like I think this bolt could come in a little bit sooner,
You know, and
so
then
that
have,
it
like,
hits and like
the
right like
internal effect, like it's like eating her away or
right
something.
exactly. So like you have this thing hit just a little bit sooner.
Yours looks so much fucking cooler than mine. Alright.
It's okay. It's your first laser bolt, dude. Like
This is not your first laser bolt?
this is not my first laser bolt. No, it just takes time and tweaking, and add the lens flare in there. That all will help a lot.
When I was in there,
So we
like,
can come over here and we can kind of like play with the duration. I mean, the nice thing about this is all this stuff is really easy to manipulate. Like we can just take these keyframes and like adjust these over 2 frames, and that will adjust the whole laser bolt and make it fly faster. Obviously, we don't want it sitting there forever, but we might be able to do something with that where like we animate it.
Can we do like a shrink grow or something where it like fucking comes in like the back like once the front hits her, the back like looks like it's just like kind of like going back in. So like almost like a mask or something, so it looks like it's like hitting its target, I guess. If that makes any fucking sense.
I see what you're saying. I would make it a whole separate layer.
Okay, alright.
Like I would do that as a separate deal. Yes, and then I agree with you about like doing something that makes it look like it's, you know, cracking or light or something flying out of that. Like that's kind of my next thing that I was gonna do with Shatter is like take the Meredith cutout that we did and then use Shatter to create a black and white matte. Then take that black and white matte and remat it with the alpha channel from the Meredith cutout and use that to kind of make the cracks move up her body. Like so, and then do some fun, like blur trickery to make it look like, the cracks are glowing or whatever. And we put those in for those like couple of frames before, after this hits to where the blood starts splattering out of her. We have, we should definitely do some more with that. Yeah, dude, exactly. You just keep working the layers up, working the layers up. And this is the super cheap do it in a couple hours way. Like if I were to do this quote unquote the right way, I would have actually gone in and like cut off her arm and cut off her head and cut off the other arm and like made those into individual layers so that we could have like parts like rip and fly off, like an arm could fly out the screen type of a thing. But this is like your 3 hour do it really fast. It's not terrible. It still needs some more work, but it's getting there for sure.
Taking all my blood.
Yeah, brah.
Sweet. Put it to
Sweet.
That's why I have it. Put it to use. Make cool shit.
Yeah, it's pretty dope. Should make a video of us shooting each other. We should do this.
There are some splatters that have some more chunks in there.
The one splatter we found is like it's 1920 by 1080, so we're using it in the background
Wait.
right now.
That's not the Action Essential one?
I just typed in blood and used whatever the hell we found, whatever we had.
On the hard drive?
Yeah.
Oh, because they're the Action Essential one.
But like this is not terrible for a couple of hours at all. Like we are on the right track. But yes, Charles, as you said, like we could take this even further. Like if I was really crazy about this, I would do something like get on Photoshop and like find a skeleton.
I'm saying, get those bones and rip
Like or even hell, I mean, the ideal way to do this would be actually to get a skeleton in a 3D program and pose it the same way that Meredith is posing with her head back and the whole deal.
You can get a free, I'm sure there's a free one on the Turbo Squid.
Does anybody in 3D classes want to try that shit?
Everyone gets all scared.
Like find a Turbo Squid model and pose it like Meredith and
Turbo Squid.
It's you can get, they have free, so you like search models and stuff. It's like a database.
Man, I really need to fucking figure out all these stupid things for assets. 3D models for professionals. That's fucking fantastic.
yeah, here's a fully rigged
Yeah.
human male skeleton.
Yeah, but that's $200. You want to sort by free.
Oh, come on. You guys aren't going to put down some money on this thing?
Yo, let's fucking-
I did. I'm just
How much
Just
money
kidding.
did you put down,
Just kidding.
bro?
I don't even
If
know.
I have to pay $200 for that, you have to pay.
This
me
one's only
$400 for it.
45.
No, but if you just search free,
I bet you Tim could find one.
That's what you want.
Tim has
Stop
one.
booking it.
A free skeleton?
no, he modeled one.
A skeleton.
Yeah.
Oh, that's right, for that project that he did.
Yeah.
Dude, I'm going to be like, Tim, can you real quick just set up a 3D skeleton for me in this pose?
That's
Because it'd be sick, like, when the light hits her, you see, like, that
her
classic...
outline, like
That
her-
classic, like, skeleton outline underneath, like the skeleton glows bright blue for like a
That
frame and a
very
half.
Addams Family.
Yeah, dude.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then her whole body just erupts into a pink mist.
Well, then when so then we need to start thinking about bone density, and would they really evaporate into a red mist? Now you gotta have fucking like.
Oh, red mist is a real thing, dude.
Oh, I know red mist is a real thing, but I'm saying, what would the bones become? So what
You
do
know,
we throw
you
in?
know
It would
that's
just
you know
fall.
that scene in Saving Private Ryan where the guy's trying to put the grenade into the tank
Oh
and
my
it goes
God.
off in his hand. Piff! Red mist. Actually, they call it pink mist,
Hey,
but
Even
those
better.
District 9 explosions, though. You remember that movie?
District 9 was dope, dude. I just rewatched that.
Good ass movie, man.
Dude, that shit had me tripping for